Hello and welcome to Correspondents, our weekly selection of reports from our network of correspondents around the world. Now, here in France, things are slowly beginning to return to normal after successive COVID-19 lockdowns. But what is the situation elsewhere in the world? Well, it varies massively depending on a whole host of factors, such as the pace of vaccine rollout and indeed vaccine hesitancy. Now, our first report this week takes us to Ivory Coast. Thijs Broek reports on the hesitancy of many Ivorians to get the jab. Let's take a look.
Empty chairs, bored staff, and patients like Basile occasionally trickling in.
La maladie, c'est pas d'amusement. C'est injuste, c'est la réelle. Donc j'invite tous mes frères et sœurs, ceux qui ne courent pas la maladie, de venir se faire vacciner.
Since the arrival of 504,000 doses of AstraZeneca at the end of February under the COVAX scheme, followed up by a donation of 50,000 more doses from India, fewer than 100,000 people have received a jab in Ivory Coast.
Compte tenu de l'actualité des réseaux sociaux, il y a beaucoup de personnes qui sont réticentes. Donc vraiment, le volet communication doit s'intensifier pour que les gens viennent se faire vacciner.
The suspension of the AstraZeneca vaccine in a number of European countries due to concerns over blood clots, doubts over the efficacy of the vaccine against the 501YV2 variant discovered in South Africa, and a mountain of fake news have dissuaded many Ivorians from getting vaccinated.
Si c'est moi, on ne peut pas envoyer ça ici. Parce que c'est pas bon. Ça tue les gens.
Les vaccins qui nous viennent en Afrique, selon certains, c'est pour nous filer le virus.
The authorities remain confident and have expanded their target, now offering the vaccine to all adults.
Nous faisons aussi une surveillance épidémiologique et à ce jour, nous n'avons pas encore détecté de cas graves d'effets secondaires et aussi pas de thrombose. Donc nous voulons rassurer.
Less than 0.5% of the Ivorian population have received vaccination so far. 60% would have to be vaccinated in order to achieve herd immunity, a target that is for now a long way off.
To Pakistan next, where there is growing concern over a continued shortage in supplies of COVID-19 vaccines. Now, those concerns are all the greater during Ramadan, when Pakistanis are coming together in greater numbers than usual to break their fast at the end of the day. Our team on the ground sent us this report.
There is a long queue to enter this special Ramzan bazaar. Such temporary markets are set up across Pakistan in the start of the holy month. Here, basic food items are sold for cheaper than the open market.
लेकिन रमज़ान है बच्चों के लिए ज़ाहिर बात है सौदा वगैरह लेना है उनको इफ्तारी के लिए इसलिए आए हैं कि चीज़ें तो ज़रूरतमंद हैं और वो तो लाजमी बच्चों को देनी है.
Lahore is one of the cities most infected by COVID-19.
हमारे मुल्क में ना सोशल डिस्टेंस बिल्कुल भी नहीं है. अगर ये रखेंगे तो कामयाब हो गए वरना ये.
During the holy month of Ramadan, attendance in mosque also doubles with no respect to social distancing. Pakistan is in the midst of a third wave. The country faces an acute shortage of vaccines. In this government vaccination center, only those over the age of 50 are vaccinated.
हुकूमत को चाहिए ऐलान करे और बच्चों को भी लगवाएं. बार-बार बच्चों को कोरोना हो रहा है. मेरे बेटे को 2 दफ़ा हुआ है, दामाद को 2 दफ़ा हुआ है.
Up to 3,000 people are vaccinated per day in this center. It is the largest in Pakistan.
घंटा ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा वरना 20 मिनट रेस्ट करना है. It's very difficult to provide everybody this vaccine. Our demand is more than our supply actually, because it's a funded program.
Overwhelmed by the demand, authorities have allowed private laboratories to commercially sell the vaccine at a price equivalent to $80. In a country where the average monthly income is $100, the vaccine at this center is only reserved for the privileged.
Well, it's not the best solution, I think, but it might be the only solution for many people who are not getting it through government. I think it's far better than getting sick, that you spare a chunk of money and do get it.
So far, only 1.6 million people have been vaccinated in the country. At the current rate, it will take Pakistan at least 10 years to vaccinate 70% of its 220 million population.
Now, Our next report takes us to Brazil, where the situation is still far from under control. That's largely down to the Brazilian variant of the virus being more contagious. Now, despite hospitals being under heavy strain, despite restrictions to fight contagion still being in place, many young Brazilians have had enough. And regardless of the risks, they are not putting off the party lifestyle any longer. Let's take a look.
São João de Meriti, a sleepy town on the outskirts of Rio. At this municipal hospital, built a year ago to try and deal with coronavirus caseloads, Dr. Arthur Ramos and his team have only a few minutes to save this 40-year-old woman. On life support, her heart has almost stopped. The doctor monitors her vital signs, concerned.
We see more and more young patients, under 40 like her, who are taking up more and more beds. The disease is progressing more seriously and much more quickly. It's very hard for us to watch and to experience it psychologically.
In Brazil, more than half of patients in intensive care are now under 40.
It is true that the new variant is targeting more and more young people. Why? Because we are entering the second year of the pandemic. And at the beginning, these young adults, like this patient, stayed at home. They took care of the older ones, but after so much isolated time, they no longer have the conditions to stay at home.
With only €50 of state emergency aid per household, young people have no other choice but to go out to work to support their families. A sense of anxiety when this 35-year-old sports teacher returns home from work. It's the same routine. Taking his temperature, blood pressure, oxygen levels, Leonardo has transformed his living room into an infirmary. He's already had COVID. He's terrified of getting infected again.
We have no idea how the body will react. In theory, I am a healthy person. But this virus is like Russian roulette. Nobody can be sure whether or not they'll have serious symptoms. I believe that if there are more and more young victims, it's because this generation does not respect isolation rules and never wears masks.
Despite the ban on gatherings, underground parties have been taking place regularly for several weeks. In recent days, the major cities of São Paulo and Rio are gradually opening up. In the lively streets of this Rio district...
Evening, guys. We're getting close to the time, OK?
Police monitor compliance. The 10 p.m. curfew is rarely respected.
It must be closed. It's the law. This reopening, I think that's what makes the pandemic gain ground.
Over the past 20 days, Rio police have been called to over 20,000 underground bars, gatherings and parties.
Our last report this week takes us to New York, where a faster pace of rollout of vaccines has meant that life is normalising that little bit quicker than elsewhere. Now, one novel means of inciting New Yorkers to get the jab has been found. It's called Joints for Jabs. Jessica Lemasurier and Emmanuel Saint-Martin report.
This small independent pharmacy on New York's Upper East Side is one of hundreds of locations offering the COVID-19 vaccine. Lisa Bash has vaccinated about 400 people this month.
I'm super excited. I am so happy to be able to help, especially the older people.
Giovanni Paez is a concierge in a local building. He lost 2 family members to the virus. He was hesitant about getting vaccinated at first, afraid of possible side effects. But now he's ready.
I was like, you know what? Even my sister got it. She's like, I'm okay. You know, my wife got it. She's okay. I'm like, you know what? Hell, that I'll do it as well, you know.
As more New Yorkers get the jab, the city is opening up. The streets are busier and some restaurants even have waiting lists. Welcome changes for those who stayed in the city throughout the pandemic, like this young and newly vaccinated couple.
I feel very lucky to live here in New York at this time. I mean, especially where we started in this pandemic back in March. I mean, now complete 180.
Just a few months ago, this would have been unimaginable. These friends, all of them vaccinated, are celebrating. 4 of them share the same birthday, and it's today.
It's almost like an emancipation. I mean, I've spent most of the last year in my bedroom. I really did not think that I was going to survive the pandemic and actually see my 70th birthday. But here I am.
Down at Union Square, there's a party going on. Activists are giving away marijuana, which was recently legalized here in New York State, to people who can prove they've had the vaccine. More than half of all adults are now vaccinated here in New York City, at least with the first dose. And judging by the queue here, initiatives like Joints for Jabs are only helping to encourage even more people to get the vaccine.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. Special thanks to Armel Coe, Elodie Radanak and Natasha Milleret. We'll leave you with these pictures from Israel, where thanks to mass vaccination, outdoor mask wearing has now ended in what is another step towards normality. Thank you for watching.